Geniuses are exceptional individuals in one or several fields like physics, chemistry, music, painting, or even gaming. Einstein, this guy is way too famous. And anyone who's famous ends up having words put in their mouth. He can be considered one of the most important people to lay the foundation for modern physics, completely changing humanity's understanding of the universe, because this guy had the special theory of relativity and the general theory of relativity. And you know what it was like to be Jewish in Germany back then. I read online that when he was young, he showed signs of being intellectually underdeveloped. He only started to babble his first words at 3 years old. But instead of having a massive physical growth spurt, he chose to put all his skill points into his brain. Einstein's school days were pretty much like the average geniuses. He'd go to class curious and questioning everything around him, and get called stupid for it, always asking about supposedly obvious things. When his teacher couldn't answer his questions, he realized that this environment is beneath me. So he dropped out of school at the age of 15. People say he got a doctor's note certifying he had mental exhaustion, so he could leave, and then he went to Italy with his family. At 16, he took the university entrance exam in Switzerland and failed. Let me repeat, he failed at 16, okay, not 18. The reason he flunked is actually pretty funny, considering he scored the highest possible in the science subjects like math and physics. As for the other subjects, he completely bombed them, but he must have passed on his second try. Einstein first became known to the entire world, thanks to his theory of relativity and the legendary equation E equals mc squared. But still, a lot of people seemed really unhappy with him. That's because the work he published contradicted some of the theories from the titan of classical physics, Newton. I looked into this and it's pretty wild, but I don't really understand much of it. It's a bit too difficult for me. Because Einstein was a German of Jewish descent, he was targeted by Adolf Hitler and oppressed pretty intensely after that monster came to power. Einstein saw things were getting really tense, so he escaped to the US, became a citizen, and settled down there for good. And America was like, sweet, we just scored a genius for the empire. Einstein, on the other hand, understood just how brutal Germany was. So he wrote a letter telling the US government that maybe they should get one step ahead. And so the US started the Manhattan Project, and the nuclear weapon was born. Some sources say that Einstein was involved in making the atomic bomb, but other sources say he wasn't. So I don't know what the truth is. But one thing is for certain, in 1945, America had created the atomic bomb and tested out its new merchandise by dropping 2 of them right on Japan to see what would happen. And as for the consequences, well, you all know the rest of that story. Isaac Newton was one of the greatest mathematicians and scientists of all time and one of the most influential. He is especially famous and widely known for his law of universal gravitation. Everyone knows the story of how he discovered gravity. He was sitting under an apple tree when an apple fell on his head, and he asked why the apple didn't fall upwards instead of falling on his head. And of course, for all these years, we've all wondered why it wasn't a durian tree. Newton is known as the father of classical mechanics, but for students like you and me, this guy was more like the godfather of all exam questions. But Newton's achievements didn't stop there. He was the first person to create a reflecting telescope, discovered the color spectrum, and calculated the speed of sound. All in all, the guy was a genius. I heard his IQ was sky high, something like almost 200. That's why his research, discoveries, and inventions were all top notch. There's a fact about Newton that I found, which is that he was a virgin until the day he died, and he never married or had any kind of special relationship with a woman ever. He just dedicated his entire life to science. Leonardo da Vinci, the ultimate master of all trades, known as the most multi-talented genius of all time. This guy was an expert in everything he did. Music, strategy, poetry, painting, he knew it all. Famous for his roles as a painter, sculptor, architect, musician, mathematician, engineer, inventor, anatomist, and so much more. Basically, there is a reason he got the nickname the ultimate master of all trades. But he's still best known for his role as a painter, with many timeless masterpieces like this one or this one here. I don't really know much about painting or art, but apparently these paintings are actually considered to be incredible. And he also has this painting that was recognized by UNESCO as a World Cultural Heritage Treasure. And of course, when you mention Leonardo DiCaprio, Da Vinci, everyone knows this painting. The Mona Lisa, his most famous work, and the one that's been turned into the most memes. I mean, when the memes first started, they were pretty wild and hilarious, but now they've just gotten stale. Here's a pretty insane fact about this painting Leonardo had to dissect thousands of corpses to understand the human body, which is how he was able to create such a famous painting. But the thing is, this painting was never actually finished, because his right hand became paralyzed in his old age, I think. Leonardo da Vinci. He followed a master named Verrocchio to learn painting. One time, he was helping his master finish a painting. I mean, this painting right here. Well, the master saw that his apprentice's painting was just too incredible, way beyond his own level. So from that day on, the master never painted again. Always plus one genius minus one master. A pretty big drama was that Da Vinci was once caught up in an accusation of abusing a young boy who was a model for his paintings. But it seems he was acquitted due to a lack of evidence. After this incident, others began to suspect he was gay. This is also quite a tricky subject. Leonardo da Vinci was ambidextrous. This guy also had a very unusual way of sleeping. He would sleep for 15 minutes every 4 hours. So instead of sleeping 8 hours a day, this guy only slept for 60 minutes each day. I didn't know if it would be effective. And it turns out it actually is. I've tried applying it myself. My 15 minutes last from 10 p.m. the night before until 8 a.m. the next morning. Besides painting, he also proved himself a genius in many other fields. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this guy had inventions in over 50 fields and had ideas for technologies that would only come to exist much later, like the bicycle, helicopter, submarine, telephone, and so on. In the words of Gen Z, nowadays it's like, please nerf this character for me. This guy was just too OP. Mozart, the most famous and greatest composer, and a child prodigy who was worked to exhaustion. The most thoroughly in the history of world music. This guy was seriously worked to the bone. Mozart's father was a music teacher, so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. What's bred in the bone will come out in the flesh. It's no surprise that he also had a God-given talent in the field of music. At 3 years old, he could hear sounds with perfect accuracy and could imitate anything he heard. By age 4, he could already compose music. His dad saw he was pretty talented and had a knack for music, so his father taught him how to play instruments and compose and all that, and this is where his life of daily exploitation began. He was forced to study music every single day, regardless of the circumstances, working his fingers to the bone day in and day out to compose and perform and so on. At 6 years old, he was already performing in Vienna, the capital of Austria. At 7, he performed in Paris. After Paris, he and his family went to London to perform, basically from a young age. This guy had already traveled across most of Europe just to perform. That's freaking insane. No wonder people say that he just composed music that was already complete in his head. He'd write it all out in one go without needing any edits. But his life was also full of hardships. To put it simply, he was hired by a lord in his hometown to play music for dirt cheap. His music career was also very restricted, as he couldn't play music or compose whatever he wanted. Finally, after a lot of drama, he quit his job to follow his passion. Sounds so idealistic, doesn't it? It wasn't until the end of his life that Mozart's talent reached its peak with many famous works. Another fact I found is that Beethoven was also once a student of Mozart's. Second on our list is Marie Curie. We've been talking about men a bit too much, so let's talk about a woman. The greatest female scientist of the 20th century. She is the only female scientist to win 2 Nobel Prizes, and was one of the first people to study radioactivity. In other words, she was at the top of her game in the field of chemistry. Like many other geniuses, Marie Curie was also brilliant and loved to read books, becoming the top student at her university. In her 3rd year, she was awarded a master's degree in physics. In her 4th year, she was awarded a master's degree in mathematics. So that was her academic path, but her love life was much more turbulent. Her first love was forbidden by the man's family because they were not of the same social standing. This was one of the common reasons for breakups back in the day. Later on, she met and married a physicist named Pierre Curie, and her greatest success was the discovery of the phenomenon of radioactivity, along with new elements such as uranium uranium, polonium, and then radium. And at that time, things weren't as advanced or modern as they are now. The world did not yet know about the dangers of radioactivity to the environment or to human health. And because of prolonged exposure while researching radioactivity, her health gradually deteriorated. She and her husband achieved the success they deserved when they won the Nobel Prize for their research on radioactivity. And her research has had many applications in the treatment of cancer using radiation. But the misfortunes of Marie Curie's life also stemmed from this. Her children were also unable to survive it due to radiation exposure, and in the end she also passed away from aplastic anemia. All in all, this is another case of someone dedicating their life to science. Respect. He was a mathematician, a physicist, and an astronomer. He's known as the father of modern observational astronomy, the father of modern physics, and the father of modern science. Holy crap, that's like a third of all human knowledge right there. Aside from being the father of a third of the world, he was the one who proved that the speed at which an object free falls doesn't depend on its mass, but on the air resistance acting upon it. In the past and even now, to be honest, even I used to think that whatever is heavier would fall faster than a lighter object. But this guy said that wasn't true. And so if you were to put a cat and fat cat into two separate identical containers and then drop both containers at the same time from the same height, the result is that both containers would hit the ground at the same time. But don't do that with the cat. Do it with two rocks instead. Now, I've only just been reading up on this, so I don't actually know if that's true. Back in the day when astronomy wasn't very developed, everyone still believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. All other celestial bodies had to revolve around the Earth. This was spread by the Church and the Pope, so everyone believed it and considered it the absolute truth. This is called the geocentric model, but Galileo didn't accept that, so he researched day and night and discovered that all the planets in the solar system actually revolve around the sun, and each planet also spins on its own axis. This is called the heliocentric model, and of course, back in those days, he was considered insane and nobody believed him at all. Galileo was put in his place by the Pope and forced to renounce the heliocentric model, or else he'd get punished and all that. But the truth is still the truth. Galileo remained steadfast in his research. Before leaving the court, he still threw in one last sentence to get it off his chest, which was no matter what, the Earth still moves. The Pope was probably like mind blown by the truth. Charles Darwin, the father of the theory of evolution, a researcher in the field of natural history, he was the one who discovered and proved that all species evolve over time from common ancestors through the process of natural selection. The first fact I found about this guy is that he seemed to be quite a party animal. Back when he was in university, he'd splurge his money on shopping, buying shoes and stuff to stay on trend. He must have had a lot of money, but like the average genius, even though this guy was out partying all the time, messing around and not studying, he still ranked among the top graduating students. Quite the smurf, huh? He also had something in common with young people today. He was hesitant to get married. This guy actually made a list of pros and cons for getting married versus not getting married, and in the end, he still chose to get married. He and his wife lived together for 44 years with 10 children. And this is where the misfortune of Charles Darwin's family and lineage began. His children, one by one, fell ill, got sick, and passed away. Only a few survived, but they were also extremely frail. The same went for his later generations of children and grandchildren. Looking back now, people speculate that his family clan had a history of inbreeding. And as for what inbreeding is, well, you guys already know. Basically, back in the old days, there wasn't much understanding of genetics, inbreeding, and all that, plus the fact that noble families wanted to keep their assets and power, so they arranged for marriages between close relatives, just to keep things secure. That's why tragedies like the one in Darwin's family weren't all that rare. Another pretty wild fact is that he never named it the theory of evolution. They say that when he was publishing the book, and this theory he was in a hurry, so it was mistyped as the theory of evolution. Originally, the name was very, very long, something like On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. election or something like that. But I gotta admit, Theory of Evolution sounds way more viral. Shakespeare, the great literary figure, England's greatest playwright. This guy specialized in writing plays. And by plays, I mean drama, so basically this guy was the king of drama. His themes were murders, betrayals, and love stories, with passion intertwined with jealousy, revenge, and all that stuff, the most famous being Romeo and Juliet. I actually couldn't find that many interesting facts about him. His theater troupe once got into some drama with the royal family, Queen Elizabeth I, I think, because his company performed a play with a royal theme without getting permission from the authorities. In the end, the whole troupe was banned for a while. Other than that, it seems Shakespeare was very successful with his writing and acting, so he was filthy rich. At 33, he bought a whole castle and owned many other properties in England. It seems that later on, he was given the cold shoulder by the entire theater industry for a long time. When theaters turned his plays into musicals, or even pantomimes, they say was done to mock his writing style. As for the reason why I haven't really looked into it, maybe he was just so good people hated him. Louis Pasteur, the father of vaccines and the savior of humanity. That's what they say online. Unlike other geniuses, who were prodigies from a young age, this guy seemed pretty normal. He wasn't anything special during his school years, but he still managed to take the exams and get into a university, which was pretty decent, and he earned a bachelor's degree in science. Back then, people didn't know about the existence of germs and bacteria, so medical treatment was still very basic. This led to many health problems, like not washing your hands before surgery. Wow, that's ridiculous. And this guy was the one who discovered the existence and the danger of microscopic germs. Because of that, the post-surgery mortality rate dropped significantly thanks to sterilization before surgery. Another one of Pasteur's great successes was creating the rabies vaccine. Besides that, he also invented many other vaccines to prevent diseases like cholera in chickens and anthrax in sheep and pigs. All in all, this guy was incredible, a pioneer in the field of vaccines. There are still many other geniuses like Thomas Edison, Van Gogh, Beethoven, Pythagoras, and others like them. And that's just the Western world, mind you. We haven't even mentioned the East or Vietnam. So we'll have a part 2 and a part 3 if this gets a lot of views. This was a lot of fun. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any videos. Goodbye and see you again.